Call the meeting of the Parsippany Troy Hills Board of Education to order on February 13th, 2025, in compliance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, entitled Open Public Meetings Act. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as specified in the Act in the following manner. A meeting notice was published in the newspaper and on the district website on January 8th, 2025. In addition, the notice of the meeting was posted at the municipal building in the schools, and a copy of the notice filed with the township clerk and transmitted to other newspapers on January 31st, 2021. The Daily Record, the Star Ledger, Parsippany Focus, Tap into Parsippany, Patch, and the district website. This regular public board meeting is being video recorded as per bylaw 168. The recordings of these meetings will be available on our district website and our Video on the Go YouTube channel. We ask that you please refrain from using student or staff names in your statement. Professionalism is expected at all times. May we have the roll call, please?
Mrs. Abraham?
Here.
Mr. Barrios?
Here.
Mr. DeVito?
Here.
Mrs. Mayer?
Here.
Mr. Rhea?
Here.
Mrs. Chappelle?
Here.
Dr. Wright?
Here.
Mr. Chapa?
Here.
Mrs. Kogan?
Here. Please stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, we're on student committee reports. Go ahead, you're it.
Thank you. Good evening, all. Let's get started with this month's Viking report, starting off with essential student council updates. Student council is continuing preparation for their upcoming event, Hill Senior Standouts, scheduled for Friday, February 21st at 7 p.m. We're currently in the process of coordinating with the hosts and preparing the award ceremony slideshow. In addition to Hill Senior Standouts, we're currently looking for sponsors for the upcoming annual Crosstown Volleyball Tournament, Spike Night. The event will be held on March 3rd. Moving on to PHHS events and updates, here are some highlights from events and initiatives happening throughout PHHS. Inkflow Magazine Club presented an interactive story writing workshop to the third graders at Interrell Elementary School on January 17th. Club members illustrated characters and created setting and plot twist cards to teach students the fundamentals of creative story writing. The class of 2025 will be hosting a pancake breakfast fundraiser on Saturday, February 15th from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Tickets can be purchased online, and they're seeking 20 student volunteers per slot to help during the event. Power Hills Academic Decathlon team competed in their regional competition on February 1st, taking home over 22 individual awards and medals. Their 5th place overall ranking has qualified them for the state level competition on March 1st. Best of luck to our ACDEC team. PHHS art students had 3 of their artworks recognized in the Morris Museum Fresh Perspectives contest, showcasing their talents among 350 submissions from 43 schools. Congrats to those 3 students. The class of 2025 will be hosting a t-shirt quilts fundraiser. E-cards can be purchased for $25 with a $50 value, with 100% of the proceeds going to the class of 2025. The latest date to place an order is April 25th. The class of 2028 will be hosting a fundraiser with BJ's Wholesale till February 28th. With every pre-opening enrollment, BJ's will be donating $10 and $5 for renewals to the Power Hills class of 2028. The PHHS Senior Internship Program is seeking businesses in Morris County to partner with us for a senior internship program which runs from May 12th to June 19th. Moving on to PHHS athletic updates. Everyone who wants to stay updated on Viking sports, scores, achievements, and events should follow the Power Hills Sports Instagram page and at Power Hills Athletics. Our wrestling team had an outstanding performance at the county tournament. 2 wrestlers became the first county champs in 11 years. A senior made history as the all-time wins leader in Power Hills history and became the first ever 4X finalist. Another student also earned a medal, finishing 3rd. The team finished 6th overall with 112 points. The following are the upcoming Viking games. Boys basketball will play Roxbury on February 13th at 7 p.m. Hockey will face Arthur L. Johnson on February 13th at Menon Arena at 7:30 p.m. And Color Guard will perform at Woodbridge High School on February 15th. Also, this was just in the boys swim team. They won their sectional championships. They got 1st place. So yeah, that's that on. Yeah. And that concludes this month's PHHS report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have
Thank
any
you.
questions for our student? No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to have a presentation by Dr. Sutter and Mrs. Corey Wageza for update on the Student Safety Data System Report, Period 1, and the program determining HIB grades. Dr.
Thank you.
Sutter.
Thank you, Ms. Cogan. Hello, everyone. Before we begin our SSD report, I want to introduce Ms. Corey Wageza, who is our Coordinating Supervisor of Guidance and Medical Services. She is also our Anti-Bullying Coordinator for the district. Ms. Wageza is here to speak about all things HIB. But first, for those of you who are new, SSD stands for Student Safety Data System. By law, all New Jersey public school districts, including charter schools, must use the Student Safety Data System to collect two types of information from schools, which include incidences of violence, vandalism, harassment, intimidation, and bullying, weapons offenses, substance offenses, and any other incident leading to student removal from school, and HIB trainings and programs. Why does the New Jersey Department of Education collect this information? The New Jersey Department of Education collects this information to fulfill state and federal reporting requirements, which include Elementary and Secondary Education Act, Gun-Free School Act, School Performance Report, Civil Rights Data Collection, Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, EDFACS, and other state reporting requirements. As you can see from Report 1, the district had a total of 64 incidences from September 1st through December 31st, 2024. Those incidents are broken down into the following categories. Violence, and they include fights, assaults, simple threats, sexual content, criminal threat, sexual assault, robbery, extortion, and kidnapping. Vandalism is broken down into damage to property, theft, false public alarm, computer, trespassing, and arson. Substances include marijuana, drug paraphernalia, undetermined alcohol, unauthorized over-the-counter drug, unauthorized prescription drugs, designer synthetic drugs, crack, heroin, and cocaine. Weapons include knives, spray guns, air guns, pellet guns, BB guns, handguns, bomb imitation guns, and others. And confirmed and alleged HIB incidents, and examples of those would be verbal, physical, electronic, gesture, written, text, mail, email, notes. Does anybody have any questions on the incidences in the report? Well, thank you very much. Without further ado, I'm going to bring up Mrs. Wageza. Mrs. Wageza,
I
floor
have
is
the
yours.
luxury of speaking about the preventative things that we're doing. He has the harder part of that. So, good evening. You've received a copy of the Violence and Vandalism Report for the 24-25 report period 1, which covers September through December of 2024. The section on HIB trainings and programs focuses on both school-wide and district efforts to educate our community on harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and promote a positive school climate and culture for all. The training area involves professional development that our staff may have participated in themselves, as well as trainings that may have facilitated for other members of their school community. So examples may include a building's anti-bullying specialist presenting on the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights at a faculty meeting, an administrator attending a Legal One workshop, department meetings that I facilitate, or even educating students on prevention programs such as the Peacemaker program at the elementary level. The programs that are implemented vary by school level and are developed to ensure that events, systems, or activities are in place, the majority of which are prevention-based. I'd like to highlight some of the school programs that were implemented during this reporting period 1 in order to celebrate our efforts and offer you a greater understanding of the numbers documented before you. Central Middle School instituted the No Place for Hate program in the fall, and it continues to run there. This program is composed of both student and staff volunteers. The students signed a pledge that they will contribute positively to the school community and not be a bystander if they observe inappropriate behavior in the form of racism. The volunteers also made presentations to their peers, encouraging them to volunteer and also sign the pledge. The goal is to reduce the number of HIBs involving inappropriate racial terms and improve the overall culture and climate of the building. Parsippany Hills High School has been implementing restorative practices to foster a more supportive and accountable community. The administration has undergone training, and 2 cohorts of staff are being trained to turnkey this knowledge at faculty meetings, ensuring that teachers can effectively use these strategies with students. A key focus thus far has been the social discipline window, emphasizing the importance of working with students rather than doing things to or for them. This approach not only encourages faculty to reflect on their teaching pedagogy, but encourages students to take responsibility, repair harm, reflect on their actions, ultimately creating a more respectful and restorative school culture. All year long at Lake Hiawatha School, staff were encouraged to nominate students to receive a positive phone call from the principal to promote kindness, compassion, and citizenship. During the Week of Respect, Lake Hiawatha held a bookmark design challenge, and participants at each grade level were entered into a raffle to win tiny crocheted positive potatoes that offered words of encouragement rooted in growth mindset as a way to celebrate their participation. In December, their student council held a toy drive culminating in 4th and 5th grade student council officers hand-delivering a bus full of toys to Senator Panaccio's office in Montville. They were able to meet with the senator and see their philanthropic efforts come to life. At Intervale School, their 5th grade peer modeling program was created in an effort to develop the relationships between the general education population and the MD-ABA population. More than half of the 5th grade students participate in this leadership program. Students give up a portion of their lunch and/or recess to promote acceptance, tolerance, and kindness. They have found that there are fewer peer conflicts and bullying instances as a result of the 5th grade students' role modeling and leadership qualities. The program continues to develop stronger relationships and fewer instances of bullying at the school. 2 students shared their thoughts on the program. One 5th grade student expressed, "It gives me a new perspective on children with special needs. I thought they were just behavior problems, but now I've noticed they just think differently." Another 5th grade student shared, "It gives me another friend, someone I hang out with." Although not part of this first reporting period on a district level, we are looking forward to our PTHSD SEL Day, which will be held on Friday, March 7th. We have great activities planned at all of our schools and have created partnership opportunities between schools, allowing for some of the high school students to go down to the elementary school to facilitate some programming. The district SEL committee also sponsored a PTHSD car magnet challenge, where staff could submit designs based on the Parsippany Cares motto of compassion, accountability, resilience, equity, and service. The winner will be announced soon, and the magnets will be available for purchase. We continue to be very proud of the fun, enriching, and meaningful experiences being offered thanks to the strong collaboration and efforts of all of our students and staff.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Wageza? Go ahead.
I have no questions, but the comment by the 5th grader, I mean, that says it all,
Yep,
right? Most of the
absolutely.
time, special ed students that have issues, kids think they're just behavior problems, but this student now understands there's a little bit more behind it. I think that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Can I understand all the programs and they sound really wonderful. Is information given to the parents about what HIB is and what we expect of students, or is pretty much everything we do with our staff and with our students?
There are parts of efforts by all schools to educate parents and inform parents. I would say that looks a little bit differently depending on the level and depending on each individual school, but all populations are we try to target all populations. So some of it is students, some of it is parents, some of it is really not necessarily under that umbrella of HIB so clearly, and more just about community and all of those positive things that we're trying to develop, and not necessarily communicated in that way of preventing harassment, intimidation, and bullying.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you, Ms. Wageza. You did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you. Up to correspondence in our meeting. Is there any correspondence to come before the board?
No, there's not.
No.
I did put something that came for you from the Education Foundation. Is that your seats? Yes.
Oh.
I emailed you about it.
The golf,
The golf outing.
yes. Okay, so is there any unfinished business to come before the board? All right, then we're up to committee reports. I think we have finance, Mrs. Chappelle.
We do, thank you. I actually have another one also. So the finance committee met on February 10th, attending were myself, Mr. Chaffo, Mr. Rea, Mrs. Kogan, Mrs. Tedesco, and Mrs. Banos. There were a number of things that we talked about. It was a great meeting, lots of progress, lots of things in motion already, as you can imagine. Very important things. First and foremost, we talked about the bond council that came and presented to us the possibility of refunding our 2015 bonds. The short story and the short good story is that it's going to bring us savings of approximately $700,000 by doing this refinancing. So for anybody watching who may not understand, it's like a mortgage. If you're able to refinance, you're paying less on this. This is the same concept that we're doing here. So it's definitely worth pursuing. So it was a great effort there by both of the providers who came and presented that information to us. We will be sharing that with everybody at a presentation on the March 13th meeting. So more to come on that. For the 2025-2026 budget, poor Mrs. Tedesco, this job never ends looking at the budget. She's already in the thick of it. She's got the revenue side pretty much wrapped up. And this doesn't count for the standard 2% increase that we look for every year. She is in the process of working on expenses. Just to highlight what we know so far is that the health and prescription benefits are projected to increase 12%. Dental benefits are projected to increase 5%. Vision will remain the same, although it's got a nominal fee anyway. But Mrs. Tedesco is trying to work her magic to balance this all to deliver what we need, and we appreciate her efforts there. There is also, we got notice from the New Jersey Department of Agriculture letting us know that we've got excess funds from the Child Nutrition Program, which we have already earmarked for projects in this year and next year in order to use all of that. Lots of great things. Some of the projects we've already talked about, replacing equipment in some of the schools, and so there's a lot more to come there. You'll see it as the work is done. There were a few questions that we talked about. One, I had raised the question with regards to any state or federal changes that are going to impact our budget. There really wasn't anything at this point in time, but we'll keep our finger on the pulse of that and adjust as necessary. And then we talked about the budget calendar, which was reviewed. We have a good timeline there, so we have a good plan in place. And then, like all of our committees, we're in the process of looking at due diligence questions to make sure that as things are being considered by this committee or things are being considered for finance, the right questions are raised so that we can challenge things in the right way to come up with the optimal answers for our district. Anybody have any questions? Okay. All right, so the other one I have is the ESC of Morris County. We met last night, so it's hot off the presses. It was a good meeting. Standard, a lot of things were standard, but it was helpful because we had the head of special services come and present a list of all the different types of things that they provide to us, provide to all the different schools. They help to support 40 different schools in 18 different districts. They provide reports to the Department of Education, and the main thing that I was concerned about was whether this group has received any requests for services that they're unable to provide. And they said that there may be some things that are very specialized where it doesn't make sense to pay for somebody to be trained to do that on site, so they'll hire somebody externally to provide that service. But generally, there's nothing else they really need to train up for or hire for internally to support what's needed. And that was pretty much it. Any questions? All right. Thank you.
All right. Mrs. Mayor, I think you have a...
I do. I have a few things. First, I want to report out that Mrs. Kogan and I went to the Muslim Heritage Month celebration on January 25th. It was at the library. It was a really nice celebration. We were welcomed. We listened to a speaker who was very good. He told us the origin of coffee, the Muslims, which surprised me. There was a storyteller. The children were excited. We both got henna done. I mean, it was just a lovely celebration. And like I said, we were welcomed, and they were really happy that we attended. On the 5th of February, there was the Morris County virtual meeting. You've got all that material in your packets. The focus was onboarding new members. Charlene gave us a quick rundown of things that she was, thinking about. The big news from Charlene was that she is retiring, so that was something that she dropped on us all. There were 2 districts that kind of gave us information on how they onboard their new members, and I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know who all attended. I know that Sheila was there and you were there. I don't know. Oh, I didn't. It's funny because I don't always see all the names on the thing, so I don't know who's all was there. But it was a really good meeting. They had 2 breakout sessions, so I thought it was a very good meeting. And also was interesting, you also got it, the new board evaluation, which I thought was pretty good. I liked it. I thought it was really more meaningful than what we usually got, so I was pretty excited about that. Yesterday, I got to go to Intervale for Career Day. It was a lot of fun. I got to talk to them about an illustrious career of being a teacher. I told them I thought that I'm sure they were wishing that I was an astronaut or something really cool, but it worked out really well. I did a science experiment with them that I had to practice at home to make sure it worked when I got there. But it did, and they were cute. They were like, whoa, it was just a lot of fun. And Mr. Walk told me that a lot of community came in and demonstrated or talked about their careers, and that when I was leaving, Mayor Barbario was coming in and Councilman Neglia was coming in. But it was fun to be there. The kids were great. I was with the 4th grade, and it was just a fun time. And I think that's all I have.
Are there any other liaison or committee reports? Mr. Vito?
No, I just had a comment on the county meeting on the 5th. So I thought it was very interesting in one of the breakout sessions that the member from, was it Long Hill? I think it was Long Hill Township? Not Long Hill. Oh, shoot.
You want,
No, where they basically went on about governance. I thought that was
Yeah.
very interesting, very informative, so I just wanted to bring that up.
there was one from Rockaway and one from Quantico, right?
There was 4 different.
There was 2 different
Yeah, those are the 2 that I was thinking of. Yeah, they all do it differently. I mean, we don't really do a lot that they do. Just saying.
Well, we do a lot.
Just differently.
No,
Dr.
I was
Wright?
right, Long Hill Township.
Long Hill, yeah. Dr. Wright?
Yes, I just want to report out a liaison report for a meeting from the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, which met virtually on Tuesday of this week, the 11th. And the topic of this Tuesday's presentation was the transition from elementary into middle school. And along with Mr. Courtwright, 2 representatives from Brooklawn were there to talk about what that process looks like. It was a relatively short presentation, but I think it kind of gave a lot of the nuts and bolts and really addressed some of the anxieties I think that many parents of special education students experience in such a large transition, particularly going from the smaller neighborhood schools to the bigger middle school schools. It's kind of these concerns about possibly even getting lost in these buildings and how the schools address those, and how the parents can continue to stay in conversation and get ongoing updates throughout the process, starting now to when their rising middle schoolers will start in the fall. That was great. The next meeting is next week, Wednesday, February 19th. It will also be a virtual meeting, and that topic will be how to read and understand an IEP.
How to what? I'm sorry.
How to read and understand an IEP, an individualized education program.
And the week before that, they did a transition a program on transitioning from high school in 21 to adulthood, and I attended that one, and it was also very good, because that's another big transition when you're leaving the school district and the school system and aging into adulthood. So CPAC is, I think, covering all the transitions, which is good. Does anybody else have any liaison? Mr. Chaffo?
Actually, critical issues.
Critical issues.
Yeah. So as you are aware, Critical Issues was tasked with revising the governance document. And I did have the opportunity to peruse the materials that Judy sent this afternoon. And I think there's enough information there that the board should consider extending the deadline that we had set to vote on and adopt a governance program, which was a second board meeting in March. I'd like to suggest that we push that back to the second board meeting in May to give the Critical Issues Committee, which hasn't met yet, the opportunity to review that material and see what we can incorporate into our governance document, because I think there is an opportunity for us to have a better document, given what was shared at that meeting.
Does anybody have any objections to moving our internal date? All right.
And did you want to make mention of the search, or no?
Yes, there is a item on our agenda to approve a superintendent search consultant as part of our process of, finding a new superintendent, and that will be the beginning of an entire process that will be well documented. Part of what the consultant would like to do is put something up on the website of a timeline and expectations. So this will hopefully be the beginning of the process.
I just agree with Andy about extending that timeline, and I think it's really good to kind of look at what the other districts reported, like at this last meeting, because there was some really good stuff that they do, and I think, just to kind of see what other people are doing might be a good help for us.
Yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time looking at the new board member onboarding. That was, the material was provided, but it looks like there's a lot of great information there, too.
Yeah.
So maybe later this year, if you want to consider assigning that to maybe policy to take a look at revamping our bylaw on the whole new board member orientation, it may be a worthwhile endeavor.
All right. And then I have just a few things in addition to the events and meetings that were already mentioned. I attended the Par High and Par Hills girls basketball game. It was fun to watch, and I was definitely impressed, first of all, by the athleticism, and then by the number of students from both high schools that actually attended the games. Like, it was really nice to see them cheering on their schoolmates. I was asked by the Morris County School Boards to be on their nominating committee, so there'll be a few meetings and we'll come up with a slate for the county board. I attended a workshop on security and mental health earlier today, which was very interesting, and I will provide the materials to Ms. Banos. There were a lot of good resources listed. It was a vendor giving the presentation, but they did provide some very good resource packets. And Mrs. Banos has been working on setting up trainings with school boards, which was another one of our goals. So I think we had 2 already on the calendar or close.
March 27th is definite.
March 27th will be the first one, and those will be on our meeting nights. And I want to thank the administration for navigating the recent weather and delays. It's never easy making those decisions, but obviously the safety of our students and staff needs to be considered, and I think there's a good process in place with lots of communication between all different parties to make sure that, good decisions are being made. And then we have a few calendar changes. We are going to schedule a work session on Tuesday, March 25th, which will start at 5 p.m. We're going to change 3 of our regular calendar meeting dates. We're going to change the May 8th date to May 6th, the June 19th day to the 17th, and then October 23rd to the 30th. So there's, different reasons that we would like to change all those dates. If you all will make notes on your calendar. Yes, they will. The main calendar will be updated. All right. Are we done with committee and liaison reports? All right. So next is the approval of minutes for the regular and executive meetings of January 23rd, 2025. May I have a motion for the approval? Mrs. Mayer, second, Mrs. Chappelle. And then roll call.
Mrs. Abraham?
Yes.
Mr. Barrios?
Yes.
Mr. DeVito?
Yes.
Mrs. Mayer?
Yes.
Mr. Raya?
Yes.
Mrs. Chappelle?
Yes.
Dr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Chapa?
Yes.
Mrs. Cogan?
Yes. Now we're up to Superintendent's Bulletin, number 12, Dr. Sutter.
Thank you, Mrs. Cogan. Good evening, everyone. Our elementary principals, elementary supervisors of elementary special education, our elementary counselors, and our elementary child study team members have started articulation meetings with middle school principals, secondary supervisor of special education, our middle school guidance counselors, and middle school child study teams. The purpose of these meetings is to discuss appropriate placements for students as they enter middle school and also to assess the district's staffing needs. Our current 8th grade parents were invited to attend open houses at both PHHS and PHS at the end of January. The purpose of the open house was to introduce middle school parents to high school administration and high school staff members. Parents were also provided with an overview of both high schools, which included courses, programs, and the difference in state requirements which pertain to high school students. The Genesis student scheduling portal opened on February 11th and will be open until February 18th. The district is recommending that all parents go to the district website to review instructions concerning the scheduling process. And February is Black History Month, and as such, our coordinating supervisor of K-12 social studies, Ms. Kristen Brendelson, has provided our teaching staff with additional resources to use in their classroom and during lessons. Additionally, Ms. Brendelson has encouraged teachers to share their ideas through the Padlet website. Tonight, for your approval, we have Superintendent Bulletin items 1 through 49 with addendum and read-in items 50 through 71. Any questions? Thank you.
No questions? All right. Secretary's report, Mrs. Tedesco.
Hi, everyone. On tonight's Secretary's Report, we have our regular business motions, including the approval of 2 roof replacement bid awards, one at Littleton and one at Mount Tabor. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Okay, then we're up to new business. Mr. DeVito, you have a topic?
Thank you, Mrs. Cogan. So, word there is right when I start here. So, most of us are a little not as young as we used to be, right? So I think most of us at a very young age learned cursive handwriting when we were in elementary school ourselves. I myself went to Catholic grade school, grammar school, K-8, and learned it in third grade, most of that, maybe even earlier. And I was left-handed. And back then, late 80s or mid 80s, they didn't really know how to teach these left-handed kids. So my cursive is horrid, and I think Mrs. Benos could tell you that. She's seen me handwriting. So it got me thinking, and when there's a recent article came out in January from the USA Today. It was actually in a few other publications as well, titled, "Can You Read Cursive? National Archives needs volunteers." They're searching for people that know how to read, just read cursive, because of all these old, very old, revolutionary documents that are written in cursive, not just our own Declaration of Independence and Constitution, of course, that they're trying to reinterpret, and they can't be done with AI. They have to actually do it by hand. So it got me thinking that, Lord, of here, just not just here in Parsippany, throughout all of New Jersey, where these kids are not learning it now. I work in IT, I've been working in IT for 25 years. We've moved from typing with typewriters to computers, texting. We don't leave notes for our kids on the fridge to say, when you get home, do this, this, and this. We send them a text because they all have phones once they reach a certain age. So, and going forward, these kids are not going to be able to be able to read cursive, let alone write it. And if they don't have that basis in my mind, how are they going to sign their own name? I don't want us to go back to the days of when the guy who had to sign a document had to put his mark on there again. They were going full circle again. So what I came across was this bill. It's for the legislature. Right now, it's sponsored by Senator Angela McKnight for District 31, where she's asking she's on the Education Committee in the Senate, and she's trying to reintroduce cursive as a mandated thing. So I was aware of other bodies in the area that have done the same, where they've passed resolutions supporting legislation that hasn't even gotten to the floor of the Senate or the House yet. This is still in committee. So I thought maybe we would consider this as a resolution, just to say we support this as a board going forward. I mean, I know the implementation of something like this is down the road a ways before even it gets passed, if it is passed as a law. So that's the basis of what I wanted to do. I guess this would be, I'd be making a motion to approve this resolution supporting this legislation. And I guess I'd need a second. Mrs. Abraham.
Yeah, Mr. Abraham.
Mrs. Abraham seconds.
Seconds it, so we can have a discussion on
Yes, discussion.
the resolution. Dr. Wright?
I just want to say, so on one hand, I do have concerns about adding additional instructional mandates, which we already know that it's a very tight, the things that need to be taught. However, as an educator, I am right now seeing the first generation of students who do not know how to write script. That's happened in my classroom. So I teach freshmen through graduate students, and it's been about 2 years, I guess. I have 2 or 3 years of freshmen who don't know how to write in cursive. And what I'm finding it is actually gets in the way of their critical thinking and critical analysis. We do in my classroom a lot of low stakes writing, and so I'll ask pretty regularly in almost every single class for them to look at a question that might be similar to an essay question on an exam, but they're not getting graded on. I'm just asking them to think through it. They write their answer. They discuss it. We talk about it. And I find, printing literally just slows it down. They're not able to, they're spending so much time printing out one sentence that they're not getting the time to think about about a more complex element. And I'd never really considered this before. And now I'm seeing it, and I'm seeing a consequence. We're not getting as deep into like classroom discussions because they have to slow their brains down to however fast their printing is. And I don't care if their handwriting is bad, and I'm not worried about them ever answering X. They all know how to print. But I think there is really something lost when a fluidity of writing is lost.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say anything? Mrs. Mayer?
Yeah. I'm all for having cursive handwriting back into the curriculum. I taught it when I was teaching in second grade. When I was teaching in another district last year, I taught cursive. So I am for putting it back into the curriculum. However, I don't want to be told by the state that I have to put it back in. I would rather have our administration and our curriculum people decide where it should go and how it should be implemented. Yeah, I do believe, absolutely, it needs to go back in. I've mentioned it during our curriculum meetings with Dr. Mulrooney. It's no secret that I've been pushing for that, but I just don't want to be coerced by the state into doing it. I want it to be done through how we do things in this district, unless it's a mandated thing. We go through the channels. The administration takes a look at it. They decide how and where it should be implemented. So that is my thinking, having done it in the district. I don't know when, I've been out of this classroom for a while, but I don't know when it left the classroom, which is too bad. I was really sorry to hear that. But I do believe it should be back in the classroom. Absolutely.
If I may, I could tell you for a fact, it kind of left the classroom about 4 or 5 years ago in the midst of COVID, because my twins were in third grade at the time, and I got samples of their handwriting. I asked them today to write out their name in print and then write it in script, And my one daughter's like, I can't do it. You can't do it. Try it. And she did it. She did it, but she just didn't feel confident. There's no less confidence in wanting to do it. So I think that's where we sort of lost it when COVID started, because my kids were in the middle of third grade and they were completely virtual, and then they were another virtual for a year and a half after that. So that's where I came from this partly too.
Just a question maybe for Madam Attorney. The resolution is not binding. It's symbolic. It's just encouraging the legislature to advance this bill, correct? But it doesn't bind Parsippany to do anything?
That's correct.
And if I may, that is basically my intention, yes.
Anybody else would like to say anything?
I would like to say a few things. So I appreciate everyone's perspective on this, and it was helpful to hear the different views that everybody has. So thank you, Tim, thank you, Matt, for raising this. But there are a few things. As Dr. Wright mentioned, I do have a lot of concern about incorporating this back into our curriculum at some point, and what we would have to give up in order to do that. With teachers already overburdened, students already overburdened with other things that we have adopted that have become mandated, or things that we think are important for our district, trying to squeeze this in might mean that we have to give up something else. So I am very concerned about that. While I do appreciate that this is not forcing that to happen, I'm just voicing my opinion just like everybody else. I know that there was, on the February 4th, the New Jersey School Boards Association legislation update mentioned that this was removed from their curriculum in 2010, so it has been quite some time, and they also shared that same perspective I just mentioned about what would have to be given up. So at some point in time, it would be helpful to hear, as Mrs. Mayor mentioned, how our administration would anticipate this fitting in. If it fits in, then how? And then I do remember, I think, in 2022 or 2023, there was a pilot that we implemented back into second grade, cursive handwriting. So I was just wondering, thank you. Yeah. So if the administration has any update on how that went.
Well, I guess I kind of took some notes on this. About halfway through the 23-24 school year, we investigated a few options for teaching cursive and found some good free materials and resources online. From Zane or Blozer, that was the best option. We also pinpointed second grade as the most appropriate grade for the initiative as the year wore on and we began to address the disproportionality issues. The cursive writing initiative regrettably fell by the wayside, and we focused on the integration of the WIN period, INRS procedures, and intervention strategies.
Yeah.
So my concern, I think, I like Matt's idea, and I also think Wendy has valid points. I think the only issue that I have is I would like to bring the committee together, like, and get the teachers' input and the principals' input,
Yeah.
because I just don't know where we would put it. Like, I could see maybe during reading lessons when we do, centers maybe, but I'd like to get input from the elementary teachers because they're valuable, and they would tell us what they think, and so the principals as well. Yes.
Yeah, I can speak to that. When I was teaching cursive, we started in January of second grade.
Right.
And it takes a long time.
Yeah.
You can't do that lesson in 10 minutes.
Right.
You have to demonstrate, you have to model, and it was a chunk of time that I had to pull out of something else. You
Yeah.
can't, once you've introduced a lesson, you can put it at a center and let them practice, but I did use Zane or Blozer, that was what we were using. They did have cursive homework, but I think that it does take a chunk of time out of wherever you're gonna put it, it's gonna impact.
I'm not even sure we have the lined paper anymore.
You can buy that on Amazon.
So
Ask Robin.
there was one more point I was going to say. My point being, why now, right? If you think about the way we operate, technology has taken over, right? We focus on typing, as you mentioned, that, we focus on using a keyboard, we focus on using a phone. But I'll note that our typing program was removed years ago, right? So we don't even focus on the skills in order to teach kids how to type, let alone how to do cursive. And typing is what they do all the time. And at some point, probably in the very near future, we're going to get to a point where there's no typing. People are just speaking, and it's going to be recording what they want.
They're doing that now.
Exactly. So, I mean, I'm just concerned that, you know, we might be going down a path that it might not be the most effective use of our time, because it, unfortunately, is going to be a lost skill.
Mr. Abraham, do you
Yeah.
have any?
I just had a question. You mentioned in 2010 that they probably stopped teaching it or took it out of the districts. Do we have any, maybe we could look it up, or I could look it up, as to what was the reason at that time why it was taken out, and then what was in its place at that time? Because 2010 was, 15 years ago. So I would be curious as to, maybe I can go look up what exactly was implemented at that time, just to find out, just from curiosity purposes, what it was. Because even for me, it was one of those things that I really enjoyed in school. My script is pretty bad now because of lack of practice, but a couple of years ago, and especially during the COVID years, I did buy one of those books from Amazon because I really wanted to teach my son how to be able to sign a legal document. And that was basically what it was all about for me, was just so that he has the ability to sign something and not have to put a fingerprint or an X or something like that. And it was just a very basic thing that I wanted him to learn. Whether he was interested in learning script in a classroom or not, I still wanted to do it in my own home, just to buy a book, teach him how to do it, a little bit of script here and there, and just have the ability to say, hey, you know what, one day you might need to learn how to do this, and it would be nice to have a signature, and your signature changes over time, and it's a little fun. But yeah, so I just wanted to ask about that. Maybe I could do some digging and find out what happened. But yeah, I'd be interested, and I know we do have to figure out where to put something like that, but I'd be curious. And I don't know what this legislation is actually going to do. I mean, it's just kind of telling you, but I don't think it's going to force anything on us. But that was all I was going to say.
Mr. Mayor?
My last comment, I promise. I taught cursive last year in third grade where I was teaching. And all these kids learned how to write cursive. My grandson had beautiful cursive handwriting. I was so impressed. This year he's in fourth grade, and I said, well, write your name in cursive. He couldn't remember how, because they don't keep it going in the fourth grade. They're using the computer. And I felt so bad, because not only did I spend a lot of time, but they really had mastered it. It was such a shame. And as you said, it's just going to die out. I said, well, you learned how to do it. Why can't I haven't been doing it since last year, that's a shame. And I agree. We need to, I think, it needs to get in there somehow. Just one of those things that they should know, but I don't know when and I don't know how, and that's where we have to go with the administration, I think.
Mr. Chafo, do you have anything else?
So it's being sponsored by a fairly powerful Democrat at Hudson County, and I'm certain it's going to make its way out of the Democrat-controlled Education Committee and most likely be voted on and approved by the...
Not necessarily, Mr. Caffo. She was formerly an assemblywoman,
Yeah.
and she put a similar bill in the previous term. I don't think it got anywhere.
It got out of the Education Committee, but nowhere else.
Did it go for a vote? It didn't, right?
I don't think it ever got to the
Right.
floor to vote for a
Yeah.
vote then. That
Okay.
was the previous term, I believe. I have to look back in the history of it, so.
My
This
point-
one has still, it just been in, December was the last time there was any action on it.
Okay.
So if I may, for a minute. So, Dr. Sutter, I totally understand your point as far as having the teachers in on it and everything like that. Again, my point here today was just to say, do we feel like, as a board, do we want to support this legislation? To Mrs. Mayor's point, and even to Ms. Chappelle's point, of course, as I said before, I'm into technology. That's my job, right? And my own kids have these same Chromebooks. They got them in 5th grade. They're going to be getting new ones when they go. We have the 4-year cycle on the Chromebooks. They're going to be getting new ones when they go into 9th grade, right? So they could still sort of write their names in cursives, thank goodness, right? But to that end, if the kids are at a young age are learned just enough cursive to get enough by to be able to sign their own names in something, that means something, because they're going to have to sign things when they get older. And, if you want to be able to proper identification, you should be able to sign your name. So even enough to be able to read it too, even if it's not much to be able to write with it. So that's all I also had. Thank you.
Yes, and then historically, this board has not done many resolutions because we have not seen them to be very effective. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do them. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I do think there's times where they are needed. I personally do not want to have the state mandating us additional work with no funding. We just had a finance meeting where we said one of our questions is going to be, if anything new comes in, how are we going to pay for it and what's going to be replaced by it? So that's, one of the things that we're already talking about. And so I would have an issue asking the government to mandate something. I too would love to have cursive and have our kids learn cursive. Mine were definitely in the period where they did not learn cursive, so I completely understand the lack of it. However, I also think with Dr. Sutter saying they tried putting it in partially last year and they could not sustain it because there were so many other things that are still mandated and they need to get to and they want to get to and the students really need to learn. So my hesitation on a resolution is that we are asking the state to take away our choice, and I am just not in favor of that. So those are my 2 cents. So is there any other discussion? We have a motion on the floor, so we should take a vote. So there's a roll call on adopting the resolution, or signing the resolution. What do you do with the resolution?
Yeah, it would be an adoption of the resolution.
An adoption of the resolution.
Whether to adopt it or not.
Mrs. Abraham?
Yes.
Mr. Barrios?
Yes.
Mr. DeVito?
Yes.
Mrs. Mayer?
No.
Mr. Rhea?
Yes.
Mrs. Chappelle?
No.
Dr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Chapa?
Yes.
Mrs. Cogan?
No.
Motion passes.
All right, and our other new business,
He said
Mrs.
thank
Mayor.
you.
Mrs. Mayor, did you have something else for the county, or did we already go through
I
it?
kind of jumped I jumped the gun here, sorry.
That's all right, I didn't know if there
Jumped
was
the
another
agenda.
You see the handwriting on the wall?
Cursive handwriting on the wall.
All right. So at this time, we're up to the hearing of the public. If there's, do I need to go through this? Oh, sorry, we're going to go back to new business while he decides if he's going to talk.
Just very briefly, I finished a new board member certification. I have my little badge that I don't know how to put on LinkedIn.
Good job. So seeing as there's no public here to have comments, we are going to skip that part. And we're going to go to a roll call vote on the Superintendent's Bulletin number 12, items number 1 through 49, with addendum items 50 to 71 and read-ins. May I have a motion? Mr. DeVito, and a second, Mrs. Abraham. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Abraham?
Yes.
Mr. Barrios?
On number 41, I need to recuse on the bill list, number 10161. So, I'm sorry, 10163.
Okay.
And recuse on 69 in the addendums. Yes to everything else.
Mr. DeVito?
Yes.
Mrs. Mayer?
Yes.
Mr. Rhea?
Yes.
Mrs. Chappelle?
Yes.
Dr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Chapo?
Yes.
Mrs. Cogan?
Yes. All right, I don't think anybody has any other business that we need to do, so I would just like a motion to adjourn the meeting. Mr. Rhea, Mr. Chapo, all in favor?
Aye, aye, aye.
Meeting adjourned.